Welcome, welcome to Wealth Wednesday. Jody Humphrey here with my partner, Kimberly Odie. Excited to have you here, and we are excited for the program for today. We got a great program lined up, very fundamentally sound. Got some things that are very timely. So let's jump right into it. We want to welcome in today the great Tim O'Rourke. He's here to help and support us, has great perspective and got very turbulent times going on, and he's ready to guide us through it. So Tim, we'll turn some time over to you.
Great. Thanks, Jody. There's a lot going on in the world, a lot going on at HCI too. So I'm going to jump right in this morning. We obviously got through the government shutdown. Everybody is aware of that. We've all been traveling. A big group went to Hawaii recently, and cross your fingers you get through TSA and without any um, without any problem. But I was talking to one of the people at TCA when I went through, and this guy was telling me that he had to ride or drive for Uber because he had no paycheck coming in, and so it was getting pretty scary for them. The unintended consequences of these things, these political deals that both these parties, anytime you have these party situations going on, I think are such a travesty that it's unfortunate that people get hurt in these kind of deals. Even though they're going to get repaid and everything, I think everything's going to be back to normal. But the deal was cut through January 31st is how this was worked out. So I think it'll get worked out through the end of the year. I mean, through the end of January, and then they'll work something out at that point. No one wants to see this happen again, probably, is my take on it. Um, so we're seeing kind of, this is such an unusual situation we're seeing right now because um, we are we're being driven by the AI trade, the artificial intelligence trade right now. NVIDIA is going to release earnings after the bell today, and everybody's kind of eyes and ears and what's going to happen with that. And we've really never seen one company really, they're the chip maker out there that's driving everybody. The buying trends, they're forecasting still $500 billion in orders for 2026. I mean, think about that for a second. That's like mind-boggling. That's without anything else going on. That's amazing when you think about the undertow of the power of that. And then you still got a lot of other things going on here with the tariffs, the inflation, the Fed. There's going to be a new chairman at the Fed also. This is kind of a turmoil thing that I think is going to work itself out. But interestingly enough, also there's the Fed is changed their whole they've changed their whole situation with the way they're dealing with their balance sheet, and so there's not a lot of reserves right now with the Fed's balance sheet, and so the banks are they're needing to borrow more money to shore up the balance sheet at the moment, and that's causing a little bit of anxiety in the market. This is happening behind the scenes, and I won't get into all that at the moment, but it's causing a little bit of disruption in the markets. Um, and at the same time, we have a little correction going on. I think the markets over the last 4 days prior to today have, and even recently, the market kind of turned around and is down. We've been down 4 days in a row. So we've seen about a 7% correction already. And I suspect we're going to see 10, maybe 11, 12%, and then it'll turn around and go back up again. We could have a little, what I call a Christmas rally here towards the end of the year, heading into 2026. So I don't know. There's a lot going on, on a global basis. But as long as the AI movement stays, a lot of energy there, people buying chips, a lot of investments still going into tech stocks, tech companies. There's a lot of undertow there that is rising up the market. I think we're going to keep a good market going. But the one thing for sure is we're seeing a lot of money go into precious metal, gold and silver. Um, I kind of call this, if you've read my notes here recently on my Tim Talks, is uh, the US dollar is still the reserve currency, but it's interesting when you see the risk off happening in gold. What that kind of indicates to me is that the gold is becoming maybe a substitute for the dollar on the reserve currency. Obviously you can't go out and say, "Hey, I got an ounce of gold. Give me something for it." At the store. But gold is becoming an asset now. A lot of banks are buying more and more gold. I think it's more of a hedge against the U.S. dollar. And then we're seeing, crypto obviously. Um, it's being knocked down quite a bit lately. There's a lot of reasons I could go into. I'm sure some of you have been watching this, but crypto is kind of one of those things I scratch my head about still because there's no asset really behind it. But it's an interesting kind of play out there, and I think governments are allowing it to happen because they're wanting more and more to go into a digital currency for their currencies, like the dollar is someday going to be a digital currency. And it's an easier way to track people's income and also control the currency. It's easier, printing dollars is a difficult situation. So, um, there's so many things that we could talk about for hours here going on in the economy with gold and the U.S. dollar and currencies around the world. At some point, we're going to see more of a kind of I guess, a convergence of all this into one major currency or two, three, four, five different currencies. I think China is definitely in that conversation. Russia no longer really is, but the U.S. dollar, China, the euro. I mean, those are the three big ones right now, and we're going to see all that kind of play out here in the future. But right now, I still see the markets moving ahead here through the end of the year. Everything seems quiet. Um, Nothing major going to disturb the markets, but 2026 is going to be an interesting year. I thought there would be more volatility. I still think there's going to be more volatility just because the AI trade has gone up when you see companies like Nvidia being traded up so much like they have. So uh, just kind of keep your eye on the volatility side. But that's just I always go back to try to tie it into what we do. I think what we do is so important because we protect people's lives, their futures, their assets. Um, I can't emphasize enough how important what you do day to day out there, spreading the knowledge of what you have with your teams and going out and helping families. It's so important that we keep an eye on on the future here for the company, but also on what you're doing to keep telling the story. It's so important and understand, the big picture of where we're going as a company, big picture where you're going with your team. So turn it back over to you, Jody.
So much, Tim. I appreciate it. Like I said, I feel smarter every week. I love having that. I think it's just another feather in our cap, if you will, and just I think it's another asset. It's another part of just being part of our overall team at HGI. You get so many things. It's piece by piece by piece. It adds up. Next week we're going to have the great Matt Salvatore on for a few minutes, and I want you to learn. You got to learn the power of words so that you can go take this incredible message. We have the greatest message, probably the most timely message in history, both on how to become an entrepreneur and at the same time in today's world, and at the same time take care of people's financial situations that they've gotten themselves into. But we've got to be the messengers that are equal to the message. And as you listen to the way Tim says things, as you listen to the way that Matt says things, or that Mauricio does, or that Zach does, or that Kimberly does, or whether Caesar does, or these guys who know how to articulate, Kathy, who come from the business and can explain these things, when you listen, you got to get great at that. And you need to be able to, in this 1, 2, 3 sentences, pack that power. One of the things I wanted to just kind of hit you with today, and I'll have Matt go over this, but he went over this last night, and I thought it was very, very powerful. And he asked a question, and he says, "Where do you right now and historically, where are they most comfortable spending money from? Where do you think that money comes from that they're the most comfortable spending?" Now, I know some of you were here. Anybody want to guess that was not here last night?
Credit cards.
Well, that unfortunately they do that too. But here's the answer: it says people historically feel most comfortable spending money from guaranteed sources of income. This is very powerful. It really hit me last night. I've probably heard it before. I'm sure I have, but I realized that right now that what we specialize in is we teach people how to move their money into guaranteed sources of income. That's a very powerful phrase. And what happens is people want to convert their assets, their money, all this into guaranteed sources of income because it creates stability and it creates that relief, but they're also willing to spend out of that money. So I think that's just very interesting point. We'll do a deep dive into that next week, but I wanted to give you that little phrase to go out as we're moving forward. So right now, we're going to turn it over to Kimberly Odie, and she's going to lead us in our conversation as we are working our way through the 8 fundamental steps in building a financial house. And I think this education will continue. So we'll have a great conversation today. And feel free to, not chime in, but raise your hand if you got something to question or something you wanted to be clarified on. And we'll have a good time with that. And then we'll leave some time at the end for Mauricio to do his Mauricio magic with us as we finish up. So Kimberly.
Awesome. I will post this in our chat later too, but I have Paul Dietrich's most recent market commentary. And I think the end of it is pretty fantastic, right? It's old Wall Street wisdom. Be cautious when others are euphoric. Be optimistic when others panic. That's how lasting wealth is built, not through speculation, but surviving. And then his final thought, protect what you've earned. And he said, the US economy is slowing. The stock market is dangerously concentrated. The same optimism that blindsided investors in 2001 and 2008 is back in full color. When the music slows, it's tempting to stay for just one last dance, but smart investors know better. Take your winnings, find your coat, and step outside while everyone else is still clapping. And for heaven's sake, stop pretending 10 dancers are the whole ballroom. The reason he says that is because the majority of the boom of our economy right now is made up of 10 different stocks, I think is what he says somewhere in here, or 10 different companies. So I'll post this just so you can read it. It's a big, long read. Some of you might be interested, some of you might not be. But I think it's important for us to keep our ears open, to keep our eyes open. We are, as Tim said, in a little bit of a correction. How long it lasts, we'll see. But we haven't had a significant correction since what? I think Paul says 17, 18 years. And typically a healthy economy is every 9 to 10. So anyway, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. We definitely talk about safety. We definitely talk about, creating those guaranteed income streams. And you're right, people are much more comfortable spending their paychecks than their investments, right? If you've ever heard me talk or the Tom Hegma story about paychecks and playchecks, same conversation, right? Turn your assets into paychecks so you know how much you can spend every single month. Whatever you don't need over and above your paychecks, they can be your playchecks. That's where you can go on cruises and vacations and, I don't care what you do with it, blow it, doesn't matter to me. Just make sure that you have enough money that's guaranteed to cover your bills. So big deal. Today, I'm going to start where we left off last time in this 8 principles of retirement planning. Again, this is in our back office. Well, it's in Abacus under our PowerPoint slide deck. If you can't see full screen, let me know now, but I think you should be able to. So section number 3, retirement distribution planning. We did the first 2 sections last time, so we're going to go through this and just talk through this today. Again, it's probably a little much for a full educational presentation, but it's great to take it in pieces, right? If you had a company or a business or an ongoing, webinar or a financial education session, you could take these and 1 or 2 sections at a time and really teach people how money works. And then also, I think, get some business from it and some clients from it as well. So section number 3, retirement distribution planning. In this section, we will discuss, I don't know, let's keep pulling it up, right? Let me pull it all up and then I'll read through them with you. Okay, so the 3 basic types of retirement accounts, how to contribute to these retirement accounts to maximize your cash flow. What's better, tax deferred, tax advantaged, or both, an IRA or a Roth IRA? How to define a true tax advantaged investment. When should you convert your IRA or Roth IRA? How distributions from IRAs and 401ks affect Social Security taxation, and then strategies to reduce or eliminate taxes in retirement. So, number 1, these are the old paradigms, right? And as you meet with clients, you're going to hear this. You're going to hear this over and over and over again. My old mindset says I'm going to be living on less income in retirement. Well, that might be true because you have less income, but not because you need less income, right? You'll be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. Given this lower tax bracket, tax deferred investing is the best alternative. So you guys have heard us talk about this a lot. Do you think you're going to need less money on the weekend or during the week? You're going to need less money during the week because on the weekend we want to go play, right? Are we going to be in a lower tax bracket? Probability says taxes are going up, not down, so I doubt it. And then, so is tax deferred investing really the best alternative? I don't know. Do you want to say something, Jody? Oh, okay.
I just wanted to show you I was present.
Thank you. Okay, so the new paradigm, you may need as much income in retirement years as you did during your working years. Our country's fiscal challenges may force higher tax rates. We've talked about that a lot right now, right? As far as the consumer spending, the debt, I saw earlier that our credit card debt is 50% higher than it was in 2020. That's insane. Like, it's crazy, right? You may lose some of your greatest tax deductions in retirement because maybe our house is paid off. Maybe our kids are grown, right? We don't have those deductions anymore. You may be in a higher tax bracket in retirement than you were during your working years. And accumulating dollars thoughtfully and proactively in a variety of retirement accounts may extend the life of your retirement assets. It's important to diversify, not have all of our eggs in one basket. What is retirement distribution planning? It's the accumulating the right amount of money in the right types of accounts in order to maximize cash flow in retirement. Awesome. 3 basic types of investment accounts that we need to understand as advisors, but also our clients need to understand as well. The taxable bucket, the tax deferred bucket, and the tax advantage bucket. So to protect against rising taxes, accumulate the mathematically ideal balance in each bucket. And again, Abacus has those calculators that will help us figure out that. So first of all, let's talk about the pros and cons of each bucket. In a taxable bucket, every year you're going to pay taxes on the growth of those accounts. They are savings accounts, mutual funds, money market accounts, stock accounts, CDs, bonds, and then pros and cons, right? So the pro of this is that they're generally liquid and accessible. The cons are they are taxable and you may lose value, right? A lot of these are invested in the market. You may lose value on that. And your 1099s from the growth on these accounts may cause your Social Security to be taxed. Taxable bucket continued. Number 1, it makes for a great emergency fund. Let me hide your faces. I love your faces, but they're in my way. There we go. Make for a great emergency fund. 6 months worth of living expenses are recommended. We talk about that all the time. Is it 6 months of income or 6 months of expenses? For most people, that is the same, right? Most people can't afford to set aside any extra money, so they need 6 months of their income. Regardless, they need 6 months in a liquid account. The risk associated with having a balance too large. What if I have too much money in this taxable account? What if I have too much money in savings? I've got tax inefficiency and I've got inflation risk because my money might not be outpacing inflation. And then I also have the double compounding problem. So let's look at the double compounding problem. This is the tax bracket that we're looking at. At the 30% tax bracket on $100,000, our total tax bill is going to be $1,500. But when we go up to the 39% tax bracket, our tax bill goes up to $2,600. So when we look at this, the double compounding problem, taxes went up by only 9%, but the overall tax burden nearly doubled. We need to understand that and understand how that works. So let's look at this example, taxable versus tax advantage. We contribute $6,500 to each of these accounts. Each account grows at 8%. In the taxable bucket, the tax rate is 30%, federal tax 24%, state taxes is 6%. In the tax advantage bucket, obviously, let me go back really quickly. State taxes may apply, but the account grows for 30 years. So these are our assumptions on this growth that we're fixing to look at. So when we look at the difference of the taxable account versus the tax advantage account, obviously the tax advantage account is more because we haven't had to pay taxes on that growth during those years. And we're talking about a taxable account, again, like mutual funds, CDs, things like that, not our tax deferred accounts like 401ks. So remember that when we're having this conversation. Quiz, what is the ideal balance to have in a taxable bucket? We don't know, right? The tax deferred bucket, no taxes as your money grows, and then pay taxes upon distribution. Examples of a tax deferred account: 401k, IRA, 403b, 457, simple IRA, SEP IRA, TSP, right? We've all heard of those different names. Contributions to those accounts are tax deductible. For example, you make $100,000, you contribute $10,000. Now your taxable income is $90,000. Distributions on these accounts are taxed as ordinary income. So we need to remember that as well. What does that look like? Oh, just kidding. I let somebody in and it messed up my thing. Distribution may cause Social Security to be taxed, and there's a penalty if withdrawn before age 59 and a half. You've got to leave it there until 59 and a half, or you're going to pay that 10% governmental penalty. And then you've got your required minimum distributions by age 73. You have to start accessing these accounts by 73, regardless of if you need it or not. Why? Because the government hasn't ever had taxes off of this money, and they want their money, right? They want their piece of it. Required minimum distributions. Distributions begin at your required beginning date, and it is April 1st of the year following the year in which you reach age 73. That age has increased a little bit over the last few years, so we'll just have to kind of watch that and see what happens with that. But every year, your required minimum distribution percentage grows, meaning what the government says you have to take out at 73 is less than what they say you have to take out at 74. Their goal is for you to distribute that asset as quickly as possible during your retirement, because again, they want the taxes that are sitting on that money. So this just shows kind of an example of increase of required minimum distribution percentages through your ages. The benefits of tax deferred in a rising tax rate environment. We think we probably are in a rising tax rate environment. So what are the benefits of a tax deferred account like a 401k and IRA, things like that? Rule of thumb for tax deferred investing: with 401k plans, invest up to the match. Take every single penny of their match money because it's free. But don't go over that. There are other places for that difference. Get the free money, then move on and look at different options. Given the right balance, tax deferred assets might be your best option, right? You want the balance to be low enough that RMDs are equal or less than your standard deductions. That means that you get a deduction upon contribution, you grow at tax deferred, and then you withdraw at tax advantaged. Most people don't do their tax deferred accounts this way, but that is going to be your best option on how to distribute this money. So how does that work? What does that look like? You retire today and you're 73 and your standard deduction is $30,000. How much money can you have in your IRA so your IRA or your RMDs are tax-free? If your RMDs are at 73 or 3.77% of your IRA balance per the governmental guidelines, right? Your IRA balance is $500,000, then your RMDs are going to be $18,868. Your standard deduction is $30,000, right? That means that your RMDs are going to be tax-free. Having too much in a tax-deferred account is going to expose you to tax rate risk. If you go over that $30,000 on your distribution, you're now obviously paying taxes on your distribution, right? So what is the ideal balance in the tax deferred bucket in a rising tax rate environment? Based on that example, I would assume it'd be maybe $1 million, right? Many different investments masquerade as tax advantaged accounts. What does that mean? Municipal bonds, oil and gas. These tax advantage investments must pass 2 different tests. Free from all taxes, federal tax, state tax, and capital gains tax. And distributions don't cause your Social Security to be taxed because we want to make sure that we have that tax-free. Examples of true tax advantaged investments that we use here: Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, Roth conversions. And then some properly structured cash value life insurance policies. You've heard us talk about IULs and the tax advantages of investing in cash value life insurance. So let's look at a Roth IRA. Contribution limits are $7,000 per person. The catch-up provision, if you're over age 50, is $1,000 per person. The distributions do not cause your Social Security to be taxed, and your principal is liquid from day one. To avoid penalty on the growth of your assets, you have to be 59 and a half and have held your Roth IRA for at least 5 years. And you must meet the income parameters set by the IRS, meaning you must not make too much money to actually be able to invest in a Roth IRA. Those numbers based on when this presentation was done, married filing jointly, phase out begins at $236,000, it ends at $246,000. So if you make more than $246,000, you can't contribute to a Roth IRA. It's not an option. Single filers phase out begin at $150 and it ends at $165. The contribution limit decreases as you approach the end of the phase out range. On a Roth 401k, you can contribute up to $23,500 per year under the age of 50. You can add an additional $7,500 over and above that if you're 50 or older. 100% of the contribution may go to the Roth IRA, but your match from your company, right, your free money, will always be contributed to the traditional 401k, the taxable side. Why? Because the employer wants the tax deduction, and the only way they can give you that money is to give it to you pre-tax so they can take that tax deduction. Okay, many online calculators attempt to define the benefits of tax deferred versus tax advantage. Which is better, Roth IRA or traditional IRA? The only variable that really matters is the future of tax rates. So let's look at this. Taxes at 30% right now, a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA. So the story of twin brothers, Doug and Gary, they have names today. Doug and Gary both have $5,000 a year to save. They both have a 30% tax rate. Gary opts for the traditional IRA and invests the full $5,000 a year. Doug opts for the Roth and pays tax and invests the $3,500 a year, just to make it fair, just to make it even, right? They both get an 8% return on their money over the course of a 30-year period of time. Who has more money at the end of 30 years if taxes remain at 30%? Gary has $611,000 before taxes. After the 30% tax, he's got $428,000. Doug has $428,000 with no tax. What happens to Gary's traditional IRA? So basically what it's saying is at the end of 30 years, if taxes remain the same, they both in essence have the same amount of money, right? That's what that's saying. Now this says what happens to Gary's traditional IRA if taxes go up by just 1%. His $428,000 goes down to a net after-tax income of $422,000. In this scenario, Doug's Roth IRA wins. What is the moral of the story? The most important variable in deciding between tax deferred and tax advantage is the future of tax rates. Ask yourself, I can't make that decision for you. Where do you think tax rates are headed? And you make that decision based on what you really believe is going to happen in the future. Quiz. What's the ideal balance to have in a tax advantage account, right? In a rising tax rate environment. There are 3 basic types of accounts in which we can save for retirement: taxable, tax deferred, and tax advantage. If taxes are likely to be higher in the future, there is a mathematically ideal amount to have in each account or bucket. The taxable bucket is 6 months worth of your income. In a savings account, in mutual funds, and something like that, that is your liquid emergency fund. In a tax deferred bucket, a low enough balance that RMDs can be offset by your standard deduction. And in a tax advantage bucket, anything above and beyond the ideal amounts in the first 2 buckets. And then finally, a tax advantage investment is free from all 3 types of tax and does not cause your Social Security to be taxed. So that's the type of tax advantage investments that we're talking about. Okay, end of section 3. Jody, you want me to stop here? You want to have a conversation? You're muted.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and have a conversation off what we've seen. Now, first of all, let's make sure they know where they can see this presentation, because just to let you know how this fits in, okay? Because we really want this to be a factory, because what we want, what you want to do is to kind of begin with the end in mind. You want to have a team that's functioning, that's producing, and that they can go bring people on. They know where to go learn things as we go forward, okay? Well, in Atlanta, in our factory, what we're going to be doing is that every Tuesday night we have 30 to 45 minutes of the LFS, and then 30 to 45 minutes of these financial principles every Tuesday night, and then also technology. And so, when in my opinion of the tools that we have, you come in, you go get a new person. That first 2 to 3 weeks, obviously, their focus should be on getting their own plan straight, also getting off to a fast start, getting licensed and getting their team built, or getting their team built and getting licensed simultaneously. But once they've done that, at about that point, somewhere in there, they need to start getting some competency, some core competency on how financial industry works for themselves, for their confidence, and then also for the then to be able to go market. So the best place that we see to do that is through this course. Now, this course is inside of ZyraZeus, I believe. It's
I'll
also,
show it to you really quickly.
she's going to show you where it's at. Now, this, just so we're clear, once your person's been on board, they're about ready to get themselves licensed, and they need to start learning the fundamentals. This course does a great job of doing that, okay? So it's both in Aristotle, inside of HCI University, if that's still there, and we have to go back and check on that side. But it's also on definitely inside ZyraZeus. So show that to us, Kimberly.
So this is Abacus. I'm in Abacus. I'm in the
Abacus.
PowerPoint bank. So if you look here on the left-hand side and you click on PowerPoint bank, you've got all of these different PowerPoint presentations. I clicked on financial education, and this one is called the new financial paradigms. So if you open that up, then you're going to get the slide that we've been going through, which is the fundamental principles of retirement planning that we've been talking about. So all of those PowerPoint presentations are at your fingertips back there, and they've been approved, they're compliant, they're ready for you just to plug and play, have a conversation. And we're live streaming to YouTube. So, you want to, what did she say? How does this work? How do we distribute this money? It's back there. And then I know, and Mauricio can talk about this too, but we also have specifically talking about that section we just talked about, how to be in a 0% tax bracket at retirement, right? There are calculators that he's created that can show people where their allocations need to be in the proper buckets when you get to that conversation.
So just so we're clear on the tools that we have to create financial competency. And this is one of the things, and Mauricio, you can piggyback off of this, is that we always look for the core competency things. And so we want to show you how to go do all those, and we have all those in place. So on that note, are there any questions anyone has?
Questions? I don't have any. You
Not
asked
not
the
not not
people.
not your questions, Mauricio. I was asking if the others had questions. Anybody else? If we don't, let's go right into your part, Mauricio. We'll turn it over to you for a few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I really liked the presentation. Definitely, it helped me a lot. If you think about where the money's at, money is in retirement accounts at the tune of, I don't know, 40, it depends on the everyday market, but it's like 43 to 45 trillion dollars. That's the lion's share of all the money in the markets is in retirement accounts, in a combination of 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, and the likes. Control the majority of the Americans' money that's for retirement. So I want to invite you to know how to have that conversation, because when you are sitting down with across the table, or nowadays more is happening across Zoom, and you are taking that information, that financial needs analysis, you're gathering information. You're going to gather their obviously income, their assets, expenses, and within the assets, maybe bank investments and retirement accounts, right? And I have found that when you are able to show them something that they have not heard before from anybody, then that's where trust really elevates, and they feel that they are with somebody that they can trust, even with their retirement accounts. And um, and it's very now, because of the tools, it's become very easy. So I'm going to start there, because I would say that out of every 10 people you meet, maybe half of them will have a retirement account. Maybe more will have some sort of a Roth IRA, Roth 4K, or IRA or 403b. And there's a piece. Oh, I need to give, can you give me permission to share my screen, please? And hopefully you guys can
All
hear me
set.
okay. I'm still battling with recovering here. It takes me about, no, sometimes days or weeks just to get my voice back from jumping into hot water to cold water in Hawaii. Let's pick any client, and this goes back to how important it is to collect information from a client, like a full F&A, that you can then are able to go to the calculator hub or just scroll down here. I like these 6 calculators because it addresses the 6 common risks that everybody that has some money needs to learn how to mitigate. The IRA analysis is it's a very powerful one, right? But I want to jump right into the task risk, because this is what this goes right into that presentation. What needs to be the proper allocation of the monies. And if you can see, the F&A that we're using is from Diego Garcia, who is 46 years of age. And if it's 40, if it's younger than 60, we want to use what's called the XY0 formula. And the reason we called XY0, because that's generation X, Y, and Z, right? The baby boomer, they'll be more in the 55, 60. And it's almost about the same thing, but when you use the XY0 zero, um, it takes all of their information. This you is coming from the F&A. And when you run the calculation, what it's doing is that it's doing all of the heavy lifting in the background, so that you're able to show that client, look, if you live on, right, because there's an income, their current income need is 14,000. That's how much they spend. And let me just go back real quick, because This is inside of the FNA, we have something called expenses. And inside the expenses, this is how much they need to live on today. Like today. And unless they are planning to live on only 70% or 50% when they retire, then you can adjust that manually. But I just want you to know where this number is coming from and how legitimate it is. It's coming from their expenses. This is how much they spend in household, daily living, healthcare, transportation, education, entertainment. So all that adds up to $14,746. Okay. So that's why when you have a full F&A and you want to go and let me go back to that client. Sorry, guys. We were looking at Diego. Okay. And you want to show them, hey, you know, what is going on right now is a lot of agents, advisors, financial professionals are talking about is 0% tax. But you're not going to be in a 0% tax just because you bought an IUL. You might have a tax-free source of income, just like if you have another Roth IRA or a Roth 401k. Now you have three sources of tax-free income, but that doesn't mean you'll be in a 0% tax. If you are hands over fist funding your 401k, and it's going to be the largest account you're going to draw from. So it's about having the right balance, and this calculator teaches you what that right balance should be by the time they retire. So here, what you're looking at: if you live on $14,000 today, it means that you're going to live in order to maintain that same spending power at a 3.5% inflation rate. You're going to need $28,000 a month to maintain the purchasing power in retirement. So that is equal to you needing $340,000 a year. Where are you going to come from? Let's just say that Social Security is going to cover $58,000 because it adjusts to inflation also. So by the time these people are 65, combine the two, they'll probably be at $58,000. It means that the rest of it would have to come from their investment accounts and retirement accounts. So the key is, if you want to enjoy all your money tax free, what needs to be your allocation? And this is a very staggering number, because obviously what you're looking at, two things here is, one is, what is the size of the nest egg required for you to be able to draw from it? Let's say the difference between 58,000 and 340,000. So in other words, a portfolio that can produce $28,000 a month for 30 years. And that number, it's like $7 million, or a little over 7 million. Okay, that's the reality. But this is the most important piece here to that you know what you're looking at, is that if you have more than $71,000 in an IRA or a 401k or a combination of the two, because Social Security is projected to be 58,000 and half of it is considered provisional income, then what is 50% of 58,000? Can somebody tell me? I'm doing the math here just to be exact, but 58,256 divided by 2, that's 29,128. So if you want everything to be tax-free, including your Social Security, it means that you need to draw no more than $2,272 for the year from a provisional income type source, meaning that if you have $71,000 in your 401k, IRA, or a combination of them between even you and your spouse, 4% is roughly around that 2,872 or something. So you could take Social Security at 58,000. That would be tax-free, provided all your other income is non-provisional income, and that's why all of it is over here in the tax-free bucket. Because Roth IRA, Roth 401k, and life insurance is not considered provisional income, so it does not add up to the Social Security income. So the only provisional income you will be reporting would be half of your 58,000, which is 29,128. And then the rest of your income you can get from tax Roth IRA, Roth 401k, and life insurance. And you could take $3,000, actually less, 2,872 from a 401k or an IRA. So, that could be, and by the way, that money also, though, that 2,872 can also be tax-free because you have a standard deduction that goes as high as 42,000. But the problem that you need to keep your IRA so low is if you want your Social Security to be tax-free. If not, then you can have more money in an IRA, 401k, and get it all the way up to where your distributions from a 401k or IRA would be lower than your standard deduction. But Social Security is not going to be tax-free. And we're talking about what should my allocation be if I want my Social Security to not be taxed, my 401k and IRA not to be taxed, my Roth IRAs and Roth 401ks and life insurance, we know those are not going to be taxed, and still have 3 to 6 months of emergency funds. This is the proper allocation for these people. And what I find very powerful here is that you're able to show the strategy, and the strategy basically gravitates around what we are recommending. In other words, this is the total allocation. 7.2 million is what they need to look into growing, because at the current spending rate at 14,000, that's what needs to be done. If you need to change that, like if you say, that looks like a big number, it does, but we're also thinking about 25 years on the road. If you want to live on 50% of your current income, that would be what? If you live on 14,000, let's say that when you retire, you're going to live on 7,000. That's just ludicrous. It's not real. That means you only need 2.6 million then. But even then, if you want to be in a 0% tax, you should have no more than $71,796 in a combination of your IRAs, 401ks, ESOPs, whatever the retirement accounts are. 80,000 in your emergency fund, because that you only access for emergencies. This is what you need to have in a retirement account, that is the tax deferred, and this is what you need to have in tax-free. And there's only 3 tax-free, true tax-free: Roth IRA, Roth 401k, and life insurance. Your current path is, because of what you have, so I'm going to go back and put the amount of income that they want, which is 14,000 something. Right? To kind of go back to what they need. So the current path, the road they are on, is if they do nothing, if they can continue to contribute to the accounts the way that they're doing it, and so they're going to end up at 65 with 1.1 million in taxable, which is investments. They're going to end up with 4.1 million in tax deferred, and they're going to end up with only 665 in tax free. So they are overfunding their IRAs and 401k by 4 million. This is the money you can redirect to Roth 401k, Roth IRA, and life insurance. If I'm making any sense. They are underfunding their tax-free vehicles by 5.8 million. This shouldn't be that complicated, but I'm just saying, eventually, if you want to differ, if you just want to move from, my term buy a term policy, or just how much money could you put away for an IUL and move all the money from Wall Street, from the banks, from retirement accounts into life insurance and annuities. Eventually, you have to manage this conversation. And it's not tax advice, it is retirement planning. Any questions?
I just
Fantastic,
want to
Mauricio.
say,
What is that?
I
Go
just wanted to say that it's crazy how most people are overfunded in their tax
Yeah.
deferred accounts.
Because they're not looking at the end of the road. Because that is because the problem we have an addiction to deductions. The CPA looks great if he can deduct this. The first thing that they recommend when clients are having to pay some taxes, what? You know what? Fund your 401k, fund your IRA. That way you get a deduction. And we've been on that addiction for 30 plus years, since 1979. And that's why there is trillions on top of trillions. So the biggest opportunity right now moving forward, especially given the fact that the future of taxes, unless something we just can't see at this moment comes up. I don't know if that's going to be AI increasing GDP by like 1,000%, and we'll pay the debt off, and actually we'll be in a lower tax bracket. That could happen. Maybe the robots, the GDP is going to go so high that the revenue to the government will be so high, they'll even send us money instead of collecting more. I don't know what Tim would add to that, but it could happen. Other than that, the road that, and if we can figure the energy for all that GDP growth. Because other than that, entitlement and the debt is going to continue to go up, and that's just the way it's designed. The debt must continue, and the ceiling will continue to go up and up and up and up and up until there's just no way but to cut all the benefits and still take all your money. So best line of defense is shift everything to tax free. So matter of fact, so who cares? Listen, if taxes go up by 1 or 2%, it made sense for you to convert anyways. Just like Kimberly was saying on the slide. The only question is, if the taxes are going to be the same, then it doesn't really matter. But if you think taxes are going to be higher, even slightly higher, then it makes sense to convert now. So you remove the risk of taxes rising or doubling. It removed that uncertainty, and there's great products that can help aid the pain or ease the pain as of paying the taxes now. And in many cases,
Mauricio, can I add one other thing to your argument? I agree with you 100% because really what's going on is the devaluation of the dollar too. So when you take that in conjunction with what you're talking about here, they're never going to reduce the debt. There's no way they can do it because 87% of the budget, 87% of the budget is unreducible expenditures, which is all the Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, defense budget. I mean, all the things that cannot be reduced, really. So what's left? All the things that run the government. Now, they're not going to be able to do it. So you're right. I mean, the only way out of this is inflation and devaluation of the currency. And this is going to continue and continue and continue.
One of the things, whether you like Elon Musk or not, but one of the things he said, I think in a recent podcast, I think is Joe Rogan said, so what did you learn as you're doing Doge? It's like that the government is unfixable. Here's a guy sending rockets sending rockets to Mars. He said the government is unfixable. So that's line of defense. So I think if you learn this conversation, you can help a lot of people. And this is obviously, it is a great segue into life insurance But then I would never put down Roth 401ks, Roth IRAs. The more you sell those, the more you sell IULs. It's about a nice balance portfolio and using all sources of tax-free income. So as a matter of fact, you can establish many cases a Roth IRA with annuities. Many cases, most of the people, as Matt Salvatore is saying, they want tax-free income. Not tax-free, not just tax-free income, but guaranteed income sources. So a lot of people that have that IRA 401k money, they earmark those dollars for retirement income anyways. And what is the tool that can provide them that income that can be guaranteed, that can be predictable, that could be lifetime? It's an annuity, right? Not everybody, not everything goes there, but a good chunk of it could, in addition to life insurance. So you can have Roth IRAs that you convert into annuities and life insurance, and then leave the portion based on rule of 100 that needs to be in the market for a greater opportunity. And I know many of us can't speak to that, but you can refer it. So I don't know if there's any other questions here, but I just think that this was I had a different program, but I didn't know that Kimberly was going to go into that conversation. And I think that this piece right here is a great piece to be able to show it. And you can show it in just a couple seconds by bringing the data, and you can show the client, this is what the system recommends you allocate, and this is the current path. So you are overfunding the wrong account. The wrong account for tax purposes. There's nothing wrong about having, eventually $4 million in the 401k. There's a lot of advantages to that, but there's also a lot of disadvantages that people don't see unless you show them, what the taxes can be, what the consequences can be. And maybe another thing I can add, guys, is that we added, and there's be an update. I'm just trying to beat a bug at this moment to make the newest update. It's going to be epic. It's going to be phenomenal. If you take an FNA, you don't know where to start, just go to opportunities. It'll show you, how much money you can refer for AUM, how much you could be talking about a client about an annuity, how much about permanent life insurance, how much in term insurance. How to have the will and trust conversation. I mean, you will have the the health products that we also have access to for those of you that are health licensed, and just every conversation you can have just by going there. And of course, you can do this with your upline. They're with you. I'm happy to announce that we've just crossed over 800 FNAs that were made inside Abacus in 2 months. That's 800 FNAs. That's great, because that means people are using it, that people are using some of the tools. Not just the tools, there's 800 FNAs, financial needs analysis, that were made in the tool. So Jody, I'll throw it back to you. I don't think I have time to go to the other stuff that I wanted to share today, but because we're out of time, but I'll throw it back to you or Tim or whoever wants to close it out.
Yeah, I think today was fantastic. I think that was a great bridge to that conversation and, part 3 of that presentation. And I think it was awesome. So thanks for hopping in and being nimble, and everybody for your conversations and partnership. So we will see you same time, same place next week. Bye, guys. Remember this on YouTube if you need it. Bye, guys.